Hi everyone, good morning London. Thank you for having me and thank you for not being in the networking break in the hallway outside. I appreciate your time today. I'm here to talk about a personal passion of mine, which is fixing some of the problems in the food chain right now. I don't know if it's similar in the UK, but we are having incredible difficulties in the States right now keeping food safe for people. We're having a growing rate of incidents in food fraud and food contamination, which are causing some serious problems. And so, from my point of view, I want to fix that with the help of technology, especially blockchain. Trust is required and necessary in a healthy society. You have to trust these pillars of your society, like the quality of the food you eat. The people who are prepping your food at a restaurant, your attorney, your doctor, you want to make sure they're not going to sew up a scalpel inside you, etc. And so as more and more of these incidents are occurring, people are becoming really, it's very difficult, especially in the US, to have a healthy society. If that policeman pulls you over, are they going to shoot you or are they just going to give you a ticket? These are some of the things that are required for a healthy society. And trust is the main part of that. Now, this is a study from the Edelman Trust Barometer, probably the biggest report on trust in the world. And you can see here that Italy, Spain, UK have all seen declines in trust in institutions like business, government, NGOs, the media, etc. But the biggest one by far is the United States, and given our politics there right now, is that really a surprise? We've had a massive decline in trust, a plethora of fake news that's caused problems for us, trusting pretty much everything. And this is why things like this happening at a Domino's Pizza restaurant and then being captured on YouTube, people perverting your food, is really abhorrent to everyone, especially if you take your kids to eat at this restaurant. And so consumers are losing trust in labels, organic labeling, certifications, things like this. And also, for example, marketing claims, Kobe beef, served at restaurants. There are only 8 restaurants in the United States that actually serve Kobe beef, and yet everyone has it on the menu. So this is why consumers are losing trust in the business. So there are 5 big issues that are happening this year which are going to make this actually worse, I believe globally, not just in the US, but in the UK and elsewhere. And that's complexity, traceability, fraud, contamination, and our governance. First of all, traceability is tough. 80% of the world's food supply comes from small farms, many in small countries, which means that the data going into the information system surrounding that food is either erroneous or missing in many cases. And a single shipment, on average, of food from one part of the world to another has 30 documents on average, paper documents usually, required to ship that food. Here in the UK, 48% of food is imported. In the US, 69% is imported. And you can see here in the background, peaches coming from Russia, pineapple from South America, lemons from South Africa. Our food has become incredibly globalized, and because of this, incredibly complex from a shipping perspective. So let's say Costco orders 10,000 heads of lettuce for sale at retail, en route from the time it gets shipped from that country to the time it arrives at the Costco warehouse, there are an average of 7 major changes to the purchase order. So we need 10,000 head, now we only need 5,000, now we need 100,000. Well, that food is moving on a ship to the Costco warehouse, and when it finally arrives, while people are sorting out the paperwork, the food spoils. And this is where most of the food loss occurs in the world. We're scolded constantly by people that we're throwing away too much food, which is true. About $1 trillion worth of food every year, but 75 of that happens before it even gets to retail. Fraud is another huge issue, and you can see here Brazil's largest food company, along with the Minister of Agriculture, along with the CEO of that business, along with the food inspectors here being arrested, were thrown in jail. They were taking beef and they were bleaching, running it through bleach and cardboard to get rid of the slime because it had long since expired, and yet they canned it and put it on a ship, and it made it to my cupboard, which I'll show you in just a second. So all of these guys went to jail, and that was last year. This year, guess what's happening? The exact same thing 1 year later, this time with chicken. So the problems are not going away, they're in fact getting worse, and it extends beyond food to other products you put on or in your body, like cosmetics or pharma. You can see here, here's a Chinese factory for producing fake counterfeit cosmetics, and it's almost impossible to tell the difference between the real ones and the fake ones due to the fact that the packaging is so perfect that only an expert in packaging would be able to see the difference. Of these two, which one do you think is the fake? How many of you think the one on the left is the fake? Raise your hands. How many of you think the one on the right? The one on the left with the RFID sticker is actually the fake product. It's almost impossible to tell. And it's not just cosmetics. It's insulin for your grandmother. There's the false insulin on top and the real one on the bottom. They're putting sugar water into syringes and selling it to your grandmother as insulin. They're doing this with Alzheimer's medication and heart medication as well because they're very lucrative products with high price points. So this is a huge problem. Contamination is obviously a big problem, and you can see here in the UK, the problem is not as pronounced as in the US. We have 48 million people sickened every year, 3,000 of whom die. And globally also, we've got hundreds of thousands of people who die every year due to food problems. Now, this is a snapshot of news in the US on the same day. Hepatitis A linked to Montana brand strawberries, which were actually from Egypt, all the chicken at Costco, and 200 million eggs. All on one day, those three things were recalled, and so we're seeing a curve, an upswing of food poisoning going like this due to these recalls. And it's not just our food. Dogs are starting to die. We've had incidents of dogs in the US who are dying because they're eating the pentobarbital used to kill the horses in the fake beef that you have. I'm being told that my time's up here, so I'm just going to go really quickly through this, but basically say to you that this is a hugely personal issue because it affects not only us, but our families. This is a can of corned beef that showed up in my kitchen cupboard that is stamped proudly with the Inspector General's signature from Brazil. And the problem was during that time that the beef was produced, he was thrown in jail along with all the inspectors from the company and the CEO. And then the USDA opened up most of the beef and found that it had indeed spoiled. So we've got a lot of people working on this problem currently in the space. IBM is pouring millions of dollars into this. And what we're trying to do is basically, we've come up with a way to certify, to prove that food is what it's supposed to be, that it got to you safely, that it hasn't been tampered with, and that you can see for yourself the path that it took to get you all the way there. Again, I'm going to go quite quickly because we're out of time, but what we're doing is we're using printed circuits from my former employer Xerox, which are quite cheap, to sense the time, temperature, glucose levels, location, etc., and store it on the package. So you can see here's some milk from Bangladesh. The consumer can see the path that it took to get to you, but also we can store what happened to that package on the package with printed memory, so it's actually affordable to do so. And then finally, you've seen these sort of supply chain diagrams before where now that we know the data and the condition and the origins and the provenance and the logistics of the milk, we can track it all the way through the blockchain so that we've removed all the doubt in terms of where the food came from, how it got to you, if it's been tampered with, et cetera. So one last thing, sorry, thank you so much for being patient with me. The great thing about this, for if you're here in business, is that we can stop all the risk downstream by stopping it here. So let's say a truck driver, lorry driver falls asleep, the temperature in the back of the container goes up to 50 degrees because he forgot to turn the refrigeration unit on. He wakes up and says, oh shit, and he turns it back on and he drives to the Costco warehouse hoping that no one notices, which often is the case. Well, we can now, Costco can see that, or the cannery can see that and reject the shipment there, so there's no risk to the consumer, there's no financial risk to the retailer, there's no risk to the distributor. And this is important because it's an average of $8 million per recall for a brand. They're the ones that are paying it, not the consumer. Parasites at McDonald's, yay! Over 6 weeks, McDonald's lost 4.6 billion pounds in valuation due to this. It took 6 weeks to trace. Last slides here, the romaine lettuce outbreak in the States, which killed 5 people, they still don't know. Our lauded CDC still does not know where that came from. So there are a lot of people working in this space, obviously IBM Food Trust, but this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to give consumers and retailers the power to see where their food came from before it got to them. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time this morning.